I want you to get together.
I'm kind of excited today to talk with you actually because it's been a while since I've touched on the spirit realm and spiritual warfare stuff. So I'm glad to have you here so we can have a bit of a change of pace on the channel. I've been swimming in preterism for like a week and
Oh,
two for a month. It's been
oh yeah,
I think
that's
I think
pretty
it
heavy.
yeah it is heavy. Yeah, so I thought it was time to come back out and go into a different deep pool over in a different place. I'm not saying we're getting shallow here, but I think it's time to change the pace a little bit. So tell me, Vicky, what have you been up to lately? How's the book promotions going? You've been traveling around, I see.
Yeah, it's been going great. I never could have foreseen this, Paul. When the book first came out, LA Marzulli, who published the book, he said, "Okay, Vic, we're gonna start out. We'll do like one podcast a week for like 3 months." And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, I'm pretty introverted, so I was like, "Okay, I can handle that." And holy cow, here we are, like 18 to 20 months later, and I can't even keep up with with the invitations, which I love. I have met some of the coolest, most wonderful people through this experience. So yeah, it's been going, and I'm like you. I also don't want to be a one-trick pony. So I'm working on a couple other projects that probably sort of fall under the basic fringe umbrella, but not every single thing I talk about is necessarily sleep paralysis or entities or spiritual warfare, etc. But another thing that I really have an interest in, and on top of talking about the Bible, is technology. And I love technology, and I have been a tech loving, American since the 80s. I remember when the first Apple Macintosh came out. No one had ever seen a mouse before.
Mm.
We were at the store like the day that thing came out, looking at that, and this like the day the CD-ROMs came out. And we have always had our little Blackberries, and my dad's been a techie guy, and so I'm not a Luddite by any means. I love technology. Obviously, we're doing this podcast right now. We've got our cell phones, but we are coming to a juncture now where our technology is becoming spiritual and it's becoming integrated with human DNA. We're moving towards singularity. We're moving towards transhumanist kind of things. We're moving now into technology that in its first generation looks very cool and helpful. But as it moves into second, third, fourth gen, it's going to become more integrated with the human brain, with the human DNA. And are we getting to the precipice where our technology is going to change who we are as human beings? That is where my interest lies. Specifically, how this crosses over into the research that I've already done with sleep paralysis and entities and astral realm, etc., is specifically, is this technology that's being presented to the public as entertainment or communication tools or innovation, is there a very intentional but hidden purpose behind this technology, that what it's really doing is thinning the veil? And these experiences that people have had throughout time in altered states of consciousness, uh, are these now going to be experiences that we have every day during the waking hours, because the technology has been developed to thin that veil and bring Gen 6 back? Are we going to be once again interacting with the cosmic realm?
Yeah, heavy stuff. I mean, I'm there with you. I grew up alongside technology as well. I remember many a night staying up with my friends, trying to take a box tower computer apart, replacing the RAM and messing with all the hard drives in there and everything. Just to get
Yes.
the thing to work for another month, hopefully, because it's running it incredibly slow. I remember dial-up modems as well and all the rest.
Oh,
But and that,
oh yes.
but the thing is, we in that generation were in an interesting time for technology because we kind of grew with it
Yes.
to become what it is today. And I know every generation will say that, but I'm saying, we saw the block phone with an antenna develop into the the shiny black mirror in our pockets,
Yep.
as though it was growing with us at the same age. It was
Yes.
I got my first phone when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and it was a block Motorola with a pull-up antenna, and you could only literally
Yes.
put numbers into it.
Yep. Yep.
And I think my only two contacts were my mum and my dad. Um, but from there, I went through it all. I went through the Nokias, the Motorola's, the Blackberries,
Yep.
what was the name for those type of phones? A Blackberry. They had a specific name, didn't they? Like a PDA type thing, wasn't it? Was that the name?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that was a stretch. It wasn't even that long ago, and we're already so far beyond it we can't even remember. But
yeah,
yeah, I remember like all the Star Trek. Like, remember the first time the little flip phone came out, and it was so Star Trek, and it
I
was
do.
so life imitating art, and yeah, it was really exciting back then to think like, okay, cool. I've got this device in my car. If I get lost or if I get a flat tire, and if only we had known what that little convenience item was going to turn into. Now, I've tried. I've tried a couple times to go back in time and just revert back to a little flip phone. And I don't know how we did it for 40 years, because if you have a job or you have a life, you cannot function without one of these things anymore. It's amazing the corner we've painted ourselves into.
No, I agree. That's the thing. Even though because we grew with it, in a sense, it was a symbiotic relationship. It grew with
Yes.
us. It adapted to our needs along with us in real time, and it's now become like a personal assistant slash parasite that requires us to keep it alive continuously by plugging it in.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And our continuous use is what makes it develop and become more and more um, sophisticated, I suppose. And in a way, what we're seeing now from that rudimentary technology is now the development of not physical progress necessarily in technology. I think we're reaching a relative apex with that, because phones have stayed pretty much the same since 2012, I would say.
Yeah.
They've only minor embellishments, or in some cases, some of the next iterations have gotten worse, like taking away headphone plugs, for
Yep.
example, before having to bring them
Amen.
back. I think
Great.
I think now what they're playing with is the software, isn't it? The AI element to all of this.
Yes.
And I still feel like it's very much in its infancy,
Yeah.
which actually scares me, because even in its infancy, it's incredibly powerful and complex.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this in the past, but I was theorizing that AI is hand in hand with the transhumanist agenda.
Yes.
I feel like it's the testing of individual neurons to build a synthetic holographic brain of some type,
Yeah.
which can house consciousness. I think that's what
Hmm.
the whole point of it is. I mean, do you want to just expound upon that and maybe have a bit of a back and
Yeah.
forth, what you think about all
I,
that?
I completely agree. And I'm not quite sure this early in the conversation if it's even that AI is at one point going to become sentient, so much as at what point is AI going to simulate cosmic entities
Hmm.
to such a more and more realistic degree that at some point it's not that the AI becomes sentient, but that the sentient beings take the place of the AI so seamlessly that we don't even recognize that it has moved from technology to an actual corporeal being.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's kind of what I'm wondering. And by way of AI, as well as the D-Wave quantum computers, they are marketing it to the public like it's this big, we're just getting our toes into the shallow end of the pool and we're trying to figure this stuff out. And we know this. We know this from the internet and from cell phones and other technologies. We are always, as consumers, probably anywhere from 50 to 75 years behind the curve of where technology really is. The upper crust knows about it before we do. The military knows about it before we do. And it's always released to us initially as convenience or entertainment. We don't often have, I think that we need to hone our skills as a race to maybe spending a little bit more time with the the law of unintended consequences. You know, it's kind of this business philosophy where when we innovate, we think of these great ideas, and you know, we don't necessarily think of how those great ideas will look in nefarious hands, you know. And we can go to the classic example of Einstein, the pacifist, creating nuclear fission, and that didn't go the way he probably envisioned it, or maybe it did, because you know, who knows who's telling the truth. But I think that this AI technology and this quantum computing is way further down the track than we think. And we've got Elon Musk and these thralls online that are trying to look like they're on our side, and we must stop this now while we can. You know, the robots will take over and all this stuff. But they know even better than we do. This this lion is so far out of the cage and down the path and deep into the jungle that we will never get it back in the cage again at this point. It is already too late to undo this unless there is some sort of global reset, you know, like some flood / Tower of Babel situation where God comes down and says, okay, we're starting over. And the technology is lost once again, and we have to start from scratch. Unless the Lord is going to do that again, we are not at a place at this stage where the lion is getting put back in the cage.
No, it's really sad that I mean, quote unquote scientists. I don't want to lump everybody into one category there. I understand we're all humans, but it's like, why does nobody listen to these really profound and simple cliches? Because I think they're a cliche for a reason. You know, it's that whole the road to hell is paved with good intentions. What else do we have? There's another one there somewhere that I can't remember what it is off the top of my head now. But you know what I'm saying? It's pretty obvious. You don't mess with these things. They always get out of hand pretty quickly. You know.
Yes. Yes.
Like I said, once the lid's off, you can't put this back in. It's one of those type of situations, and it's a playing God situation, I find, as well. I think a lot of this is rooted in either blind ignorance, like I said, just the pursuit of progress for progress' sake, not really thinking about the consequences. I mean, you get these characters like Elon Musk, as you mentioned earlier, you know, coming out one side of his mouth, he is saying things like, we're in danger of AI here, this is serious, we could be in danger here, you know, we're basically unlocking the demon with this thing, you know, we're summoning the demon. And then out the other side of his mouth, he's drilling holes in people's skulls and attaching some kind of Neuralink to them, you know what I mean? It's kind of, oh, is that right, Elon? You're our savior, are you? Thank you so much for listening to your own advice there. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just silly, isn't it? It's like, listen, just pay attention to the cliches, please, and just follow the simple advice and stop playing God. Maybe we'd be okay.
Well, and this really does tie in, Paul, with where the conversation is headed, because what the Musks of the world are trying to convince us of is, hey, because we've opened Pandora's box, this technology is going to supersede us in knowledge and power. And so the only way we can compete or survive is to upgrade. And so now this is survival. This isn't, you know, about convenience or innovation or entertainment anymore. This is survival. We got to outsmart the machines. But what we have to really evaluate, and this goes back to what I was saying about sentience, is these computers are being programmed and developed and invented by human beings. And we're not God. We can't create something more powerful than we are. We can't create something more knowledgeable than we are. And so what they're banking on is, at some point, the reason why this stuff is going to take over is because it's going to become sentient. And so the questions we have to start asking is, what do we really mean by that? Do we mean it in the science fiction realm of that all of these zeros and ones, or these, you know, qubits, you know, and whatever else is invented in the binary code? Are you literally saying that at some point binary code is going to find a way to breathe life into itself and turn silicon into man like God? Or are we saying that at some point something with sentience takes it over? Because we all know that a computer isn't all of a sudden going to become human. So, what do we even mean when we say this AI is going to go sentient? Uh, I, I really think that we need to stop just throwing around these buzzwords because they sound really cool. You know, we've got like this quantum language now that makes
Mm.
everybody, no matter how dumb you are, sound really super smart. We can throw out all these terms, you know, about quantum entanglement and time travel and all this stuff. But the fact is, we got to start with defining our terms. If Musk believes that we have to upgrade ourselves so that we can outwit the sentient binary encoded computers,
Mm.
what is actually happening? You know, we know that human beings went from earth material, soil. We turned from clay to human when a spirit being breathed life into us and that animated us.
Hmm.
So if the enemy, who's always mimicking God and mocking God and copying God, because he doesn't have any original thoughts and he doesn't have the power to create, at what point is that creation going to happen? At what point is the breath of the enemy going to be breathed into the silicon, this material of earth that we've used to create something that is inanimate? At what point is the breath of life going to be breathed into the silicon, and that creation of the enemy is going to become sentient? That's the question we really have to start taking seriously. We have to kind of get out of our Star Trek, you know,
Hmm.
Hollywoodized versions of this and all of our iRobots and Minority Reports, you know, and you know, we have all of these kind of romanticized pictures in our head of, you know, the Tom Cruises and the Will Smiths running around, fighting the man, right? But what is that really going to look like? Because we have to prepare ourselves for what is inevitable unless God comes in and stops this.
Hmm. Well, I think it'll look a lot more sad than we think it's going to look. I don't think it'll be quite as action packed with explosions and robots fighting everywhere. I think it will look a lot more like us locking ourselves into more isolation,
Mm-hmm.
as subtle AIs run things in a way we can't see or understand.
Yes.
And our influences us to make decisions we don't even understand that are being influenced. I think it's gonna be more like going out with a fizzle and a whimper rather than a bang.
Yes.
And while we're looking for the big thing, the Skynet event, it's not
Yes.
it's not going to
Yes.
look like that. I agree with you. I really do. And this thing, we have been asking these questions, I feel like people think we're in the realms of fantasy sometimes with our
Yeah.
speculations, and I really think it's the other way around. And again,
Yeah.
I think it's the other quote, I think I remembered it earlier. It's that typical cliche. For all the times they were asking themselves if they could do it, they never bothered to ask if they should.
Yeah.
It's another one of those cliches again that I don't really think the people doing this. I think the majority of them don't understand or even consider that there is such a consequence because they don't even believe a spiritual realm exists. They don't
Yeah.
understand that there's a biblical history to explain that there are spiritual entities on the other side of a veil, as we call it,
Yes.
just itching to get a body again.
I want you to get together.